Hi. We're going to be filming for YouTube because a lot of people requested that we do. This is
me. Hi guys. I'm the one stealing Lissa and to run her to America. I'm really sorry. Sorry, not sorry.
So this is our very first class ever together.
Together.
Yeah. So you guys are lucky enough to see our first one together, so really excited to present this to everyone. We are going to be talking about why we choose raw foods. And we each have 5 points, so we're going to go back and forth talking about the reasons why we choose raw. And just to prelude, I have my 4 books here. This is my newest one that was released at Christmas time. This one's 40. The Dips and Dressings, which is the most popular one, this one's 50. The winter one here, this one's 25, and this one's 30. This is the original meal plan.
And this is the book that I bought when I went raw.
Yeah.
And this is the book that like literally changed my entire world. Like this, I still like crack. I've got it like, you know, little dog tags, and I'm like, all right, what is this one? I got to make this for my friends because they are gonna freak out. Because you know, most people they hear like raw foods, what do you eat? Like you don't eat any cooked foods. Yeah. I'm like, no, but you don't understand. Like it's so different than what you're thinking.
Yeah, and here, let me show you. I've got these cool recipes.
That book is epic.
So, yeah. Sure. So the story for you, those of you who don't know, he bought my book in 2016. 17. 17?
Yeah.
And I didn't know. I thought it was 16. And I didn't know.
Another year.
Another year? Yeah. Okay. So I didn't know who he was. He was just a fan. You'd comment on some of my
I'm
stuff.
still a fanboy. Like, yeah, honestly.
And he went raw. He lost 60 pounds.
Yeah, it was like 67 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, following that meal plan. And he just became a raw foodie.
Yeah.
And he met my friend Jack at the Woodstock Fruit Festival, and they started talking, and they talked for hours.
Yeah, I knew who Jack was because I saw you guys do, you know, them do like a video together. So I was like, oh my gosh, Jack's gonna be here. I can't wait to see Jack. And I'm like, Jack, you know, I know, Lissa, check out, like, I did my, you know, I'm a raw foodie too. Look at my picture. Yeah, and so he sees my picture, and he's like, oh my gosh, she's got to message you, and like, you need to do a YouTube. You know, this would be a great testimonial for her book. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's my go-to book for sure. And yeah, so then I got back and I was like, Lissa, you're so awesome. Oh my God, I love you. And I would like say that on our Instagram stuff, you know, like, but you know, when you're getting hit up with hundreds of people, you know, I'm just like another one of the numbers. But I think because Jack shouted out and was like, hey, check this guy out. He's, you know, great testimonial. That's how it started. So then I contacted her and she messaged me back and was like, let's do a YouTube, you know, for my channel. I was like, all right. So we did the YouTube, and you know, we just kept talking. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning, you know, like talking about whatever, all kinds of stuff, life and whatnot. Yeah, but that was it.
That was it.
That was the book right there.
Yeah. So, and most of you know who I am, Lissa from Raw Food Romance. I have YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, my books, and Nate now. He has all of his stuff. At Raw Natty Nate. So he's got a YouTube channel, and he's coming out with an ice cream book. There's going to be 77 recipes in the ice cream book.
Oh my gosh, this book is going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
I love ice cream.
Yeah, he's like,
like people are like, what do you miss the most? And I'm like, ice cream. I'd like sit up on the counter with a half gallon of ice cream. Dangerous.
So yeah, so he's going to come up with that book, and we've got so many things planned. But today we are spending this day with you guys.
Yeah,
which is
I'm
awesome.
so glad you guys came in.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. So we're going to start our class. We're just going to go back and forth, and we're going to talk about the top 10 reasons why we choose raw food. For me, I mean, they're all number 1 reasons, but my number 1 reason would be for the hydration. So the human body, we're water-based machine, and we need hydration. And most of the foods that we consume are dehydrating on the body. So cooked food, especially baking and any dried stuff like breads, cookies, crackers, chips, all those dried good foods that we like to eat, those are all drying on the body. So it's like you're pulling from your hydration bank account to help digest these dry foods. And no amount of water is going to compensate for the water that's missing. And especially even dried nuts, like we still do dried nuts, but a nut in the wild has the consistency of a grape. So it's very like hydrated, obviously, but it doesn't have a taste, obviously, but the texture is like a grape, like a raw almond is very like water-based. So we are not meant to be consuming all of these dried foods, and our body is pulling water from our colon mainly, and then from our cells, and I think that is one reason why we age faster, because we are just becoming constantly depleted of hydration. So they did this one study where they had two groups of people. One group ate a long English cucumber, just like that, and the other group drank from a glass the same amount of pure water that would be found in the cucumber. After they did that, they were both studied for their hydration levels to see what was improved. The group that ate the cucumber was twice as hydrated as the group that just drank the plain water.
So interesting.
So there's something magical and synergistic in the hydration in raw foods. So you're not consuming the dehydrating foods, which is stealing your water, plus you are replenishing your stores of water by consuming the hydrating raw foods.
And the fiber too.
Yeah, and the fiber too. They're just so synergistic, and all that hydration is just so good for the body. So that's my number one tip.
I love it.
Or reason why.
Yeah, and it's so true too, because they say just like waking up and breathing is 16 ounces of water. Like just breathing throughout your day, 16 ounces of water. And then just bodily functions, just walking around throughout your day, another 16 ounces of water.
Yeah.
And then they say, like if you are wanting to be optimum, at least drink another 32 ounces of water. So that's 64 ounces of water. Now I know I'm probably blowing you guys out of the water because I don't know what the milliliters would be. Okay, so 2 liters. 2 liters. So we're supposed to be drinking 2 liters of water a day just for functioning. And like how many people are drinking 2 liters of water a day? Probably like not many people. Good on you. Good on you. Yeah, 2 liters of water a day. And so if we're not drinking 2 liters of water a day, and then we're not hydrating ourselves with proper nutrition, we have a snack attack, and we're like, half the bag of chips is gone. And
energy bars, protein shakes. Honestly, like the protein shakes and the dried powders, like greens powders and all of that, those are completely devoid of water.
Yeah.
So
and then it just compounds.
Yeah.
Day by day, and then pretty soon we're struggling for energy out there. Like everybody's struggling for energy, so we're like grabbing coffees, we're grabbing like energy drinks because we're just so depleted. It's intense. Yeah.
So you gotta hydrate.
Yeah, hydrate. And so my thing, number one thing would be vitality. And that was like why I wanted to go raw. Like I watched my mom heal herself of kidney cancer by going raw. She ate nothing but grapes for like 5 months. She was doing grape juice and lemon water. She was doing this thing, like a really intense fast. And so I'm plant-based at the time, but I'm eating a lot of cooked foods, and I'm not feeling like really that great, and it was just what I'm used to though. Like it's easy to cook up some rice, get some beans going, but my mom's like, you need to go raw, and I'm like, yeah, I know, Mom, I know. And I said like I would follow her, like when you find out what cures your cancer, because I know you will, it's mindset. It was like she put in the order, like, when you order something off of Amazon, you're like, cool, it's ordered. Like, you don't even worry about it anymore. You go about your day, you're like, it's coming.
Yeah.
But as soon as she did, it still took me 8 months to really make the connection of, like, how important it would be for me to go raw. And I was skiing with this guy, John, and he was 86 years old. You guys, 86 years old. Now you guys do years the same up here, right? Yeah. So like we're going up on the ski lift, and like I get into the conversation. We start talking about my mom, and he's like, yeah, I've been a raw vegan for 42 years, and I'm like, 42 years, and he's like, yeah, I had colorectal cancer at 44, and I reversed my colorectal cancer going raw, and I'm like, this guy is a dude. I'm a dude. I want to be like this guy, And I'm like, how's the flagpole? And he's like, yeah, everything's good. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have friends my age who are like, having, like they're half-mast, So it was a no-brainer for me. Like, I went home right then and was like, all right, I already said I was gonna follow my mom and doing what she's doing, but I don't wanna, I'm not trying to reverse a disease. I'm not trying to cure myself of cancer or anything. So how can I do this where it tastes good? And then that's where I found Lissa on YouTube. I'm like YouTube crazy, binge watching all kinds of videos. And I see her before and after. It totally caught my eye. I was like, oh my God, look at this chick. Like, what did she do? And then, just like she has awesome charisma, and just like she's so real, So I binged to watch all kinds of videos, and she had that mantra, like, I'm a raw vegan today. I'm a raw vegan today. Just say that to yourself. I'm a raw vegan today. And I was like, I can do a day. I'm like, let me buy her book and let's see what this is all about. And so, man, that's what got me going, the vitality part. Like, I could not keep up with this guy, you guys. I mean, I snowboard, and he's a skier, and traditionally, like, skiers just go faster than snowboarders. But I could not keep up with this guy, and I was doing I had to have been going, I think, like, at least 40 miles per hour. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but, like, I was, like, scared trying to keep up with this guy. And, we get down to the bottom, and I'm like, John, like, you're a superhuman. And he's like, raw foods, man. He's like, listen to your mom. And I was like, dang, and this is somebody who's not necessarily on social media trying to pump everybody. He's just living his life, doing his thing, And so for me, the vitality is so, like, it makes sense. Like the concept of taking an apple, you plant the apple. That's not necessarily how you grow an apple tree, but you plant the apple would grow into a tree, If you bake the apple, which, God, a baked apple is so delicious. Yeah. But it's not going to grow into a tree, So it makes sense. But then it's like, okay, I have to like reprogram myself because I'm so used to how I've been raised, and this is going to be like tricky in a way. But it's worth it, to be 86 skiing down the mountain. So yeah, that's my second point.
Sweet.
Yeah, or first point.
First point. Well, my second point is going to be about food addictions. So that's why I love to be raw, because for myself, I've dealt with food addictions, and the day before I went raw, I had a whole bag of Doritos for breakfast. I had those breakfast champions, and I had some of those like country fried chicken things for lunch, with like a whole container of wedges, the potato wedges, the fat ones, and I ate like maybe about half a cup or a whole cup of sour cream or ranch dip, I think. I can't remember which one it was. It was one or the other, alternate days. And then I snacked on candy or chocolate. I had coffees. I had 2 energy drinks that day. I was suffering from heart palpitations every single night at 2, 3 in the morning. I'd wake up feeling like I was having a heart attack. And it was incredibly distressing, because you're like, I would wake up feeling like I was having a heart attack, and then I wouldn't be able to get back to sleep because I would be imagining what it would be like to die from a heart attack if I was actually having one. So it was it became, the sleep was so horrible. But my food addictions, I remember eating chips thinking, why am I eating this?
Yeah,
and I'm just totally unconscious, just eating, and it was like I was possessed.
Yeah.
And it was just taking me over. Or I would have these intense, severe cravings, and I would just find myself in the car driving to the store, and I'd be like, I shouldn't be doing this. Don't do this. And I would have these battles in my mind. And when it catches hold of you, it's horrible. And the reason why I do not include cooked food into my diet is because I know for a fact, and I'm not going to test it out because I'm sure I would be okay, but I don't want to try. But if I added like a sweet potato to my big raw salad, I'd probably be okay. But then the next day I'd be like, I liked that. I'm gonna have another sweet potato with my big salad. And then the next day it might be 2 sweet potatoes with a smaller salad. And then it would be
the weekend there's a party coming out.
Yeah, and then I'm like, well, I'm eating a little bit here and there, and then all of a sudden it's a whole plate of potatoes and no salad.
You'd have that size of a bowl of salad.
Yeah, this little tiny bowl of salad. I'd be like, I'll have this, just because I'd start to feel guilty, and I'd have to like include vegetables for the token vegetable. Like, I'd be feeling guilty about it. So I know that they're a trigger. I don't miss potatoes right now, but I know if I ate them, then I would start to miss them, because the more concentrated the calories, especially with the oil, excess fats, and the density, it creates more of a dopamine hit in your brain. So you're gonna crave those things that create that heavy dopamine dump. And that's why like a bag of Doritos was like so euphoric, I guess. But it's not euphoric to you because you're like, I know I shouldn't be eating this, but it's that addiction. So that's why, but I consider, for me, potatoes mainly, rice I could probably do without, but potatoes are like a gateway drug. As soon as I would eat one, it would open the floodgates, and it might be slow, like things would creep back in, but eventually I know that where I would be.
Yeah.
Because it's happened before in all the last, because I learned about raw food in 2004, and it wasn't until 2014 that I actually went fully raw and stayed raw. I would try it for like a couple days. I think the longest I went was 2 months. But things would creep back. I'd have like a little bowl of pasta at the in-laws' house or something, like, or whatever. I would have these little things, and then slowly, suddenly, I'm back on eating junk food. So I treat cooked food the way a recovering alcoholic treats alcohol. It's easier to say no to absolutely everything than to have that debate in your head. Like, well, I had this on Saturday, so I know on Monday we're going out for lunch with the girls, and like, you know, and then you have this debate, and it's easier just to say no to absolutely everything and not have to worry about it. So my favorite quote is, complete abstinence is easier than perfect moderation. Because who knows what perfect moderation is? What's moderate for you might not be moderate for you, might not be moderate for you. So everyone's gonna have their different opinions on what moderation is. So there's no such thing as perfect moderation. So you can't really do that. But I found right before I went raw, it was probably a couple months before I went raw, this last time, I read a book called The Heroin Diaries by Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue, and he was talking about his basically he died twice in his life, and that's when he finally woke up and got rid of his heroin addiction. But I'm reading his diaries of what he was going through when he had this heroin addiction, and I'm reading it like, I feel like that towards food. He was injecting in every last possible place he could. And you're just like, you will do anything to have those foods when you have food addictions. So, and I don't think a lot of people address the food addiction part because it's food, right? And we've eaten these things forever, and we'll still eat them forever. But yeah, so they're not totally addressed, and we need to start talking more about food addiction because a lot of people can't. There are many people who can keep one potato in a big salad and just keep doing that. But for a lot of us who suffer from that, we can't do it. And I have personally found incredible amounts of freedom by saying no to everything. And I love that. So that's my second reason.
And then to top on that, you're practicing self-control because, like you're saying with the heroin, like if you were an alcoholic, you're like, that's cool. Like, this is a special occasion. It's Jimmy's birthday. Like, I'm gonna have some of this beer.
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you're like, man, nobody's gonna know.
Yeah.
I might just have one more beer tonight by myself. And then pretty soon, it's a slippery slope. Mm-hmm. So I love that quote too, abstinence is definitely better than perfect moderation. Yeah, it's interesting. The addiction is so real. Somebody had said, what's the most addictive thing on the planet? And they're naming off all this kind of stuff, and and it's like, it was like, whatever, chips or cooked food, cheese or cooked food, or cocaine or cooked food. And
you had to pick between the two.
Cooked food, we don't even realize it. It is so incredibly addictive, as well as the concept that we've damaged the food. It's not in its natural form. It's not processing through us the same. Yeah, it's pretty powerful stuff. So my point would be it's the simplicity. The simplicity of a raw food diet is so much easier because when I go into a store now, I literally have two places I hit. It's the produce section and the bulk food section. Maybe, and the spices are in the bulk food section. So it's just those two places. The rest of the store is it's pretty, and there's packages, and oh man, look at all the stuff they have. Look at this tower of chips. Oh my god. But yeah, it's so easy, and then it's making it where you don't have to really think very hard on, oh my gosh, okay, what am I gonna have for tonight for dinner? I have kids, so, my kids eat plant-based, cook plant-based. So, you know, I'll maybe put a little more thought into their food, but sometimes they just want something really simple. So I'm like, how about we just have like melons tonight? Boom, there's a melon for you and a melon for you. And if you're still hungry, we'll have an ice cream afterwards. And this motion is the Vitamix. So yeah, it's but it does take like time getting used to it. It's a whole, you're reprogramming, as well as you're like modifying the inner terrain. You know, this inner terrain is kind of what's calling, like, hey, it's Jimmy's birthday, dude. Like, come on, just have, you know. So you really have to. It takes some time. It's not like I did the 30-day meal plan, and 30 days. It was like, all right, cool. This is, you know, I'm getting into like a little more of a routine, going through the shopping and such. But it wasn't until like after like 3 months, I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just like, this is life now. Like, oh, I'm just gonna have French dressing. I've got like dates and garlic with me. You know?
Your little spice pack, you know, you're taking it everywhere with you.
Which in a sense, it is tricky because we're not set up out there, you know, where it is accessible. So you have to plan ahead. You have to think about what you're gonna be eating. Yeah. So
that's one of yours.
Simplicity.
My next one would be creativity, because I find that I'm a lot more creative. I'm not saying that you can't be creative when you are eating cooked food and whatnot, but I feel that for me, I have become so much more creative. I mean, I've written 4 recipe books. I'm working on the 5th right now, and we have ideas for some more together. I just feel like I have more of a love with my food, and that's why I named it Raw Food Romance, because I'm having a love affair with raw food. And so I'm more creative. I can take like traditional cooked food recipes and I think, how can I make this raw? And it's like a challenge. It's really fulfilling to create, and as a creative person, and we're all creative people, when you make something, you feel so fulfilled when you do. Like, you are a photographer, so you feel so fulfilled when you create something. But yeah, like, I feel so much better, when I'm creating, and I can make these amazing, like, check it out. We've got the ramen ingredients. Look at these guys. Yeah, I know, it smells so good. So we're gonna make some ramen, but like, this came to me, some of my recipes are random, they just pop into my head, and I'm like, this is gonna make a great idea. They test it out, it's fun to play around in the kitchen. So I feel like I am more creative with my raw food, and that's why I love raw food.
Yeah, and I love it because, like you're saying, the connection, and that's kind of what drew me to her book, was like, raw food romance. Okay, this makes sense. Like, you're falling in love with food again, you know, because it's not just like, oh yeah, you know, like, here's my lunch, you know, like, it's a paper bag lunch or whatever. Not to say that that's not convenient, it's super convenient, but there's no connection there. Like, who's making this paper bag lunch, you know? Some dude is in there who, like, does not want to be making your lunch. So the energy exchange through that is something, you know? And yeah, that's super huge. The connection is super huge. And another thing too is like, during the prep work. So I'm sitting here cutting vegetables. Now when I started, I was like, okay, I gotta bring my Vitamix to work. I've gotta bring my seasoning pack to work, because there's nowhere that I can go in 30 minutes to get something good and healthy. And I was like, I want to inspire people, like, this is pretty doable. And I'm cutting vegetables, and they're like, Nate, I'm just like mesmerized. And I'm like, dude, I'm just like cutting vegetables, you know? But the connection that we have with our food is gone. And it's so quick, but as I'm cutting, you know, maybe having headphones on, I'm like, it's just nice. Like, I'm connected with this. In the colors, I got reds and greens, and, you know, the smells, and people come in, they're like, oh my God, it smells so good. And, you know, it was interesting because I would have my lunch made, like a salad like this size, dressing, you know, out of my Vitamix, you know, and here come my coworkers back from they got their sack lunch. They had to walk to the hospital, like we're at the clinic, you know, and I'm like, dude, you know, you can't say that this has taken a long time or not doable. This is me eating. And, you know, like, I'm done with my salad, and you guys haven't even got back with your, you know, what do you have there? Like cordon bleu. Oh, yes, I remember the cordon bleu, yeah. But that's...
Yeah, the amount of time that they went to go grab their stuff and then come back.
Right.
It just, like, was...
There's no connection there.
No connection, yeah.
You know, so here I've, like, you know, and it's not like maybe I'm, like, praying to my food or blessing it as it's just the act of, even just the act of, like, oh, this is a good one. You're washing it up. You're looking at it like, oh, how am I going to cut this one today? Maybe I want to cut it different. So the connection is so huge. And that's another thing that really, I fell in love just the same. Is that, you create like a romance with the food, yeah.
Sweet. So my next one would be all the health issues that I've healed and how great I feel now compared to how I felt before. So I think for myself, if I feel my best eating a raw food diet, why wouldn't I always eat the best? Like, why would I go back to eating those foods that I know I didn't feel so great eating when I could eat something that I know I'm going to feel my best eating? So that really is kind of like a motivator for me. I really enjoy just focusing on how I'm going to feel. And that's something that people can use as like a craving buster tip. Would be a lot of people, when they have a craving, the first thought is, I'm going to think of how I'm going to feel after I eat this bag of chips. Like, I'm going to feel like crappy and, like heavy in your stomach. Your mouth might be dry from all the salt. All of those feelings that you feel. But when we have a craving, we want the reward. So we want the reward of the dopamine hit from this junk food that we're eating. So that's what we want. We're reward driven. We're not negative stuff driven. Like, yes, we don't want to have those symptoms after we eat it, but that's not enough to deter us from eating it. So we have to think of another reward. What reward? Reward of health. Reward of how are you going to feel, not how you're going to feel after eating the chips. How are you going to feel if you choose a salad and eat that instead? How are you going to feel about yourself? You're going to feel a lot of self-pride, and you're going to feel a lot of love, self-love for yourself because you ate this hydrating, delicious salad, and you're going to feel all the benefits from eating the salad. So that, to me, is more of a reward than the dopamine hit from the bag of chips. So I'm going to be more likely to choose the salad. So that's just a tip for people who have cravings, is instead of focusing on those negative effects, yeah, we already know that's going to happen, but we want to start focusing on the positive side and why we are choosing a raw food or plant-based even, high raw, whatever. But why are you choosing that one? So that you can feel better. So I lost 70 pounds. I cleared up severe acne. Like, my joint pain went away. So many things cleared up when I went raw, and I don't want to go back. Like, I want to maintain and possibly improve on my health even more as I move through my life. And I don't want to be bogged down by those other health issues that I had before. And I mean, we all age. We're not going to be 20 anymore, and we're going to go through life. And I don't like how there's some people who will say, like, I've seen some comments on YouTube, other raw vegan YouTubers, who are like, oh, well, so-and-so is a raw vegan, why does she have wrinkles? And it's like, come on, people. Like, this is not like the fountain of youth. It's just the cleanest, the healthiest, the best way to live. It doesn't mean that you can't eat the other stuff if you want to, but if they don't make you feel good and if they're contributing to some health concerns, then why are we still doing it? But again, it's a journey, and yeah, but that is why I stay and choose raw, is because I have improved my health so much that I don't even ever want to go back. I'm really happy with where I am. Always striving. I mean, I've started doing Bikram yoga, and so I've been doing that, and it's been amazing. Waking up at 5 a.m.
Of course, going to bed earlier.
Going to bed earlier, so I can wake up at 5 a.m. But these other changes have greatly increased the properties of raw food. Like, I feel even better than I did when I was just eating raw food, not really doing a lot of movement or whatever. It's just like Dr. Doug Graham's wife, Rosalind, she says it's like a wheel with spokes. And each spoke is like, there's diet and exercise and movement and breath and stress management, sleep and all of this. But if one of them is like way out here, right, the wheel's gonna be oblong shaped. If one's too short, it's gonna be weirdly shaped. So we have to make sure that we give a good amount of ourselves to each spoke. So that would be one of my reasons.
That's
is
excellent.
health issues. And on that note, I just wanted to throw in, because we didn't have this one on our list, but cooking food does leach minerals and vitamins. It damages proteins depending on the heat. Like if you bake a potato over, I think it's 350 Fahrenheit, the starches actually turn into acrylamides, which are cancer carcinogen. So anything fried, anything caramelized, like caramelized starches, are cancer causing. And same with meat and animal products. There are compounds that are made in the process of that. I mean, I've even read studies where breathing the fumes from cooking or charred meat.
Just thinking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Can actually be hurtful for your body. So one thing that I think is really interesting is some people will come to me with, well, what about cooked tomatoes, for example? Isn't the vitamin A and the lycopene so much more available? This is true. You do absorb a lot more of the lycopene from the tomato when it's cooked. However, depending on the cooking method, you've depleted 60% of the lycopene. So you're really only more absorbable that last 40%. So, you know, it doesn't really, you can balance out. So if I'm eating 2 pounds of raw tomatoes, I could be getting more lycopene than a cooked tomato or so. So it depends. I mean, it's up to you guys. If you want to eat cooked food, totally fine. But these are why I choose not to consume them. I feel like I get a lot more.
Yeah, it's just so touching.
But yeah, so, hi, welcome. And another reason why I choose raw in that aspect would be the trap. Like it's kind of along the lines of like, I already feel so good, why would I go back? Because there are moments in the last 4.5 years where I've thought, well, I would be okay if I had something, right? But that's the trap, allowing it in, and that's where it kind of ties in with the food addictions, is that I don't want to try it out or test it because I know where I could go, and I don't even want to try. I don't even want to test it out. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And the flavors.
Oh yes.
The flavors of the raw food take some time to get used to because you're so used to the flavors of, say, like the cooked potatoes with, you know, like how do you have a potato? You put like the oil on it, whatever, like, you know, butter and garlic seasoning and some herbs and spices, some salt, you know, a bunch of salt and pepper, and it tastes so good. And so you get, like you're saying, you get that dopamine hit. It's like, you know, I like how you say you got a hit, and it's just like if you were to like smoke some crack or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's so intense, but it takes time when you get, you know, the reason I like to choose raw is because now I can taste more. I can just like taste things so much better because I try not to have, you know, added salt to stuff. I mean, there's some sodium in some of the recipes, you know, with like, you know, the miso.
Well, the coconut aminos and miso would have salt.
Yeah,
so
but I can taste things so much better than how it was before, you know, after like, you know, you eat like a whole thing of popcorn, you're like, you can't taste anything after that, you know? But yeah, the flavors are so intense and so good, but I remember like how you're talking about how you feel. And I mean, like the thought of like cordon bleu or like a burger or something, you know, like I remember how it tasted, you know, and I can even, you know, maybe even start to salivate thinking about it if I were to like sit there and think about it for long enough, like, oh my gosh, you know, like I definitely think of the animals. I'm you know, I'm ethical now. I can understand that concept. I've made that connection, but I used to cook a lot of tri-tip, you know, and I would just put salt all over the tri-tip, and that's how I cooked it. And everybody in my town was like, Nate, you cook the best tri-tip, you know, and it's like, it was so good, like right here, you know, like, oh, it's so amazing. And as soon as it like left that and was like down here, say like the pizza, we have this amazing pizza place in town, and like, oh my gosh, it was so good right here. But after it leaves there and it goes down, like, you don't feel good. You're like, man, I shouldn't eat 4 pieces of pizza dipped in ranch. Like, you know, that's what we do. We just drizzle ranch all over it. You can't taste anything really. You know, as far as like, it's just a muttered kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, our friend Light Samps, he says that it's like cooked food all kind of tastes the same.
He's like, it all tastes the same. And I'm like, man, that's such a great point because it really kind of does. You know, like you steam broccoli And I mean, steamed broccoli is delicious, but you're gonna put butter all over it, and you're gonna throw some seasonings on there, and it's, it feels good here, but then after that, you're like I could eat probably 4 crowns of steamed broccoli, because the hydration is gone. Your body's probably like, sending the signal, how come you're not feeding anything? Get more down here. You're like, well, let's have some more broccoli. But, say raw broccoli, like what we have in here, a whole crown, of course, that's plenty enough broccoli. Like, you don't need any more. You're full, and the flavors, though, that's what I really like is I wasn't able to necessarily taste as well as I can now. And that's another reason why I stay raw, is I want to have my, I don't want to also be a slave to my tongue. Like we're slaves to our tongues. We're like, oh my God, that tastes so good. And, it's not that it's going to feel good down here. It's just going to be all like right here, Yeah. So.
And we put foods on pedestals.
Right.
Right? We'll put like that pizza or whatever you want to think of as your food of choice. You would like break your like healthy diet on the thing that you're only thinking about. We put it on this pedestal and we wait until Friday night to have it, or Saturday is our cheat day and we can have this food, and we wait all week and we're like, I was good all week and now I can have this cheat thing. But we should be putting our health up on the pedestal, right? We should be putting how we want to feel as the reward, because we have all these, reward, punishment things that we do to ourselves. So putting our health up there is the best reward that we can have.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. That's good. That's good stuff.
So my last thing of why I like to be raw is I like to be unique. I like to stand out from the crowd. No, I'm not extroverted to a point. But I like to be different. I like to be at the table eating this huge giant salad and having people think about what I'm doing. And it makes them question, like, why is she eating a huge salad? Maybe I should be eating that huge salad. And I like to be an example. I like to show people the way and be like, this is how I'm doing it. And I think you should probably incorporate a little bit more into your life. And we all know we should be eating more fruits and vegetables, but we just don't, because other things taste better. But once you start eating raw, once it becomes more of your reality, then it tastes better. And I sometimes think of like our pets. Our pets eat like one food, right? And they don't complain. I mean, at least we don't hear them complaining. But they eat the same thing all the time, every day. Maybe different flavors, but it's all kibble. Like they don't need like takeout and chips and candy and ice cream and all this kind of stuff. I think personally, we are like the most spoiled, rotten species on the planet, because we have so much choice, and that's the paradox of free will. We have so much choice, and we're choosing the wrong things. So we are going to suffer the consequences of our free will.
Yeah, and if you do feed your pet all those different kinds of food, like their health starts to decline just the same as it does for ours. Like, when you're giving your cat a piece of cheese or something. Yeah.
This is not meant for their bodies. And if we were put in a zoo, for example, by like a greater species, by us or whatever, and we were put on display, we would be fed a frugivorous primate diet, right? They would throw us fruit mainly and lots of leafy greens, maybe a little bit of nuts and seeds here. We would get in our fruits, and that would be our natural diet, because on the taxonomy chart we are frugivorous primates, and that's what we are. And just because we can eat something doesn't mean that we should. We can. There are a lot of survival foods out there, and that's why when we were moving more north, as our species evolved through time, we were moving more north where there was like less greens, less fruit, less stuff that we could eat. So we were basically forced to start saving our root vegetables and our grains so that we would have food over the winter. And then once that was gone, we were resorted to animals, because that was really the only thing that we could eat to keep us alive. And then, so if you think of a tribe, maybe say there's like 100 people, 150 in your tribe, and everybo's starving because it's in the middle of the winter, and they've depleted their roots, and there's nothing else to eat, and they're starving. So, the leaders of the tribe are going to be like, well, we need to do something about this. So they go out and they hunt an animal and bring it back. This is the food that they probably haven't eaten in a while, and everybody's going to have a big celebration. They're going to have a bonfire, they're going to throw a party because now they have food. So over time, we've kind of conditioned ourselves to have celebrations around animal products because it's become this like celebration. And we have to break these links because we don't have reasons to do these things anymore. We live in a thriving time. Not all of us do, and I get that. Like, there are people who don't have the means to get, but the ones that do have the means, we have a lot of power with our dollar to not purchase these foods that are wrecking our environment, they're killing animals, they're hurting this planet and our health. So we have the power to choose with our dollar, and we should be starting to choose more with our dollar to help all of that. But I like to be unique because I like to be an example to everybody. That's one of my main motivators for doing Raw Food Romance is I love being different. I remember when I was first learning about veganism, I only knew a couple vegans, and all of them but one were mean vegans. And they were like, poke fun at what I was eating. They would say I was horrible for this and that. But I knew one vegan who stayed in her own world. Her name was Violet, and every time we would go to these like staff dinners, the company taking us out to the staff training or whatever, they would pay for everything. So you would order the most expensive thing off the menu, you would order 3 appetizers and your main course and dessert and the wine, and everything was paid for. But she would get her little plate with her veggies, and she brought her dressing, and she just ate it there. And every single time she would do that, I would think, I should be doing that. I never ever once thought that she was weird, even though that would have been a typical thing that somebody would have thought, or I even would have thought. But I was like, I should be doing that. Why am I not doing that? And I'd look at my plate and I'd be like, I should be doing that. Because you know how you're going to feel. You're going to get the restaurant rock, and it's going to be restaurant rock. Yeah, that's what I call it. But yeah, so I love that she was so unique and she stood out and made me think and question what I was doing to my body. So and I want to be that to other people. So and those are my reasons.
That's huge. It's so huge. And it teaches us to plan, you know, like we're having to think ahead. Like, okay, like yesterday I'm on the plane, I had a plane ride to come up here, so I'm like, okay, what am I going to bring? Because there's nothing to eat in the airport. Like, I see the pineapple, when I go get the pineapple, I'm like, all right, hey, you know, like, they're like, oh, sorry, you can't buy the pineapple. I'm like, why not? It's like right there with the bananas and the apples. They're like, no, we only sell the bananas and the apples. The bananas are like, you know, still green, and I'm like, man, there's like nothing to eat. There's no like unpasteurized juices. There's literally like absolutely nothing that I can have in the airport. Like, we've searched around too, like, let's see what we can find. Like, is there anything? Very rarely there'll be a place where you can get a salad that's, you know, you can walk up and get your own salad made, and you're like, no, leave all that stuff off, just put extra this, extra that, and no dressing, you know, because it's oil, and, you know, like, I brought a lemon, you know, so it's all just like, it teaches us to think ahead, which of course can help us in life with so many other things, you know. So that's one of
self-discipline.
Yeah, right. And that's one of the things that I really like about it. So yesterday, I made my salad, and I had my dressing, my pad thai dressing, and I had some falafel seed meat, you know, made, and I had my tomatoes, and I brought celery with dates, which I learned from Chris Kendall, the Raw Advantage, the celery and dates. And talk about being unique, you know, like here I am on the plane, and like, you know, they're like, you know, serving up wine and the beer, and you know, the chick's getting wine next to me, and like she's eating her crackers, and I'm like, you know, putting dates on my celery. You know, like people are tripping out, but you know, it's what I need for me. You know, it's gonna make me feel good. And then I get to the airport and I'm waiting for my plane, and I set out on my suitcase, my little salad set up, and I'm like, man, I better snap this. This is cool for people to see. Like, hey, this is, you know, self-love, you guys. Like, I'm not falling prey because like, oh, well, I'm traveling, so, you know, it's cool. I'm just gonna go to Jimmy John's and get the sandwich or whatever. I had my salad already made. So just like when we take a trip somewhere, you're gonna make sure you've got air pressure in your tires, you're gonna make sure you got your fuel all set up, and like, okay, we're gonna need money for this, we're planning ahead. So it helps in so many other aspects of life, being able to think ahead of what we're gonna put into our body for the fuel, because we like totally don't even think about what we're gonna put in ourselves. Yeah. We're just like fly by night. We got our bags packed. We got stuff for the kids, you know, if we got food for the dog, we're like, oh yeah, what are we gonna eat? Oh, let's stop at the store, we'll get all the stuff, you know, eat at the store. So preparing, you know, and thinking ahead, I think is definitely another reason, another plus. It's just another plus to it.
Totally.
Yeah.
So those are our 10 reasons why we choose raw. And we're going to open this up to a Q&A while we spiralize the cucumber. So we have, like I said, our ramen, which we're going to make for all of you guys.
Delicious.
So I'm going to count up who's here, and we'll do Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, more than happy. Yes?
You guys want to share that I went to Disneyland last year and we brought our own food to the park.
Yes.
Oh, that's
You guys are
awesome. Champions.
Champions right there. That's
Hi,
what's
what's
up.
your question?
Why do we eat vegan food?
Ooh.
That's a
Why
good
do
question.
you eat vegan food?
Yeah.
Why do you eat vegan food? Oh, he says he just loves the mommy yogurt.
Oh, yeah.
So cute. That's actually a really cool interaction that I wanted to share too on a side note while Nate's doing this. Something that you can say when you're talking to somebody and they ask you questions like that, like why are you vegan, or where do you get your protein? That's one question that I get a lot. Use the Socratic method and ask it back to the person, because it makes them think of the answer instead of you just giving them the answer. So if somebody says, where do you get your protein? I ask, where do you think I get my protein? And then they're like, well, I'm not sure. You know, it takes their guard down. They become, you know, more open to listening to your reasoning. Because if they ask, like, where do you get your protein? I'm like, well, it's in my plants. They still haven't had to think themselves for where it is. Or if somebody says, why are you vegan? I'll say, why do you think I'm vegan? And they're like, well, I don't know, maybe for the animals, right? So always asking a question keeps you in control of the conversation. And yeah, we are making...
This is so fun. That's another reason I liked raw foods too. Like we're saying, you know, with the creative aspect.
Yeah,
of it,
creativity.
is because you're like, hey, you know, maybe I'll throw a little of this in there. And I do feel like I'm more in touch with my inner child now, because I'm trying different things than I maybe have not tried. You know, oh, I need to make this taste a certain way. Like, yeah, it's so fun.
And chop them up.
I think another reason too why I like to choose vegan food is the connection of the animals. We're not eating animals, and that's a tricky one because we're just so used to it. It's something that, you know, if we're not born in that household, like I was raised by, you know, standard hunters and fishermen, and I remember the first time I caught a fish. I was 7 years old. We lived in the desert, so we came up to Oregon. And my uncle lived on the river, and so we go to the river and we're fishing, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so much fun. And I caught this fish, and here I am, 7 years old, like, oh my gosh, I got it on. And he's like showing me how to reel it in, and I get the fish up, and I could not even think about fishing anymore. All I wanted to do was just play with that fish. I'm like putting my hands in the bucket, the fish is like swimming around, and then my uncle's like, all right, let's go clean the fish, you know? And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm thinking like, can we get a bath or something? And so we go up, and he's like, here, he takes the knife, and he's like, and then tears the guts out, and I just lost it. You know, 7 years old, like hysterical, lost it. And I would have been vegan right there if I had like open-minded parents and been like, okay, actually maybe he just, you know, like he made the connection. But you know how we're trained, like I got pulled aside by my uncle, my grandfather, and my dad, and you know, got to talk to, like, this is what men do. You gotta be able to provide for your family. You gotta, this is, you know, you're being able to, this is the circle of life, the whole concept. And so now, it's like, man, it's so simple to think why you would choose to be at least vegan, if not raw, because you're not putting in, you know, dead animal parts in the sense that we put them in. Now we're talking like, you know, say it's winter time, the natives are wanting to celebrate, you know, like they got a buffalo, right? They get one buffalo in the winter time, and they make all, you know, maybe some jackets or something, and there's a ceremony. It's a whole different aspect nowadays. It's not like a sacred thing where we're having, you know, say, you know, one animal, one elk a year. I've got friends who are elk hunters, and they are like, Nate, I only eat the meat that I kill myself. And I'm like, BS. I saw you at Outback Steakhouse that you put on your Facebook page, bro. Like, you're not just eating the meat that you kill.
Yeah.
Now, there's this gal, I don't know if you guys know her name is Renee, and she has like Rowdy Vegan, I think it's Rowdy Vegan Sanctuary. And she is one of these main spokespeople for animal rights, animal activist she is. And what made her make the connection, because she is from a 10th generation cattle farmer. And you don't think about going vegan when you raise cows that's what you use for your money, that's what you do. But every time, she started to ask her husband, like, hey, how come we don't eat our own cows? And he's like, didn't want to answer the question. I can't talk about that. And even he would like have a hard time like loading up those cows when it was time to load them up in the truck. And so she was saying that what really clicked it for her was she went to a friend's place and everybody's freaking out about this beef stew. Oh my gosh, the beef stew, it's gonna be so good. It's the best beef stew you've ever had. Wait until you try this beef stew. So she gets there and she's like, okay, what's the recipe for the beef stew? And the host says, well, first you start off with 1 pound of young golden retriever. And she was just kidding, but that was enough for her to make the connection, like, oh my gosh, like literally like, my cows are like grass puppies. Like they just come up to you, they're all excited, because you're feeding them, you take care of them while they grow up, and she couldn't do it anymore, so she told her husband. This gal, she's really famous. She's like on NBC, ABC, CBS. Yeah, she's amazing, and she's from the baby boomer generation, so she's got, just a cool sense about her, and she's very loud. Being an activist, she's
Rowdy
very loud
vegan.
on why she chooses to be vegan, and but yeah, it's interesting, like why do we eat vegan? Why do we eat plant-based? There's lots of reasons for all kinds of people. Like Lissa went for health. I did it for health too. I was like, I don't want to get cancer. My theory was like, okay, if you swallow your own saliva, just like I just swallowed some saliva, for about 50 years, you're probably going to get cancer. Like everybody's getting some kind of cancer. It seems like everybody has some kind of sickness. And so I didn't necessarily make that connection with the animals until after I already was vegan. I was like, oh, this is definitely a no-brainer. I definitely don't want to purchase, I don't want to vote for that, so. And it's neat because there's so many different transitional foods nowadays. We've got the mock meats, the mock cheeses, the mock milks, the ice cream, the butter, you name it, it's all there. Like these companies just want our dollars, so they're going to give us what we're voting for. Whether we're voting for the animals mainly, and we don't necessarily care about our health, because I have some friends that don't necessarily care about their health. They're just eating a lot of these vegan transitional foods, and but whether you go for the animals or for our own health, it's good for everybody all the way around, the animals and us and the planet.
All right.
Look at this, you guys. Oh my gosh.
So this might be a little bit big, but I would typically consume about this
Yeah, I could
for
totally
lunch.
eat
I
all
could
that.
eat all of this for dinner.
Now that takes a little bit of time to get
Yeah.
used to. You're thinking like,
This
oh my
is a
gosh.
standard size
Yeah.
of my dinner.
Yeah, we had a bowl. Now we didn't have meat. I guess if we take one handful out, we each had a bowl about that big last night.
Yeah.
And you got to take a little more time. You're chewing a little bit more. But
Yeah, and it's hydrating,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Obviously, so it's gonna fill you up. But you can always set it aside, have a little bit later. You don't have to eat it all at once. I find that for the most part, eating a salad like this takes me about half an hour to 45 minutes. You just put on a Netflix show and watch an hour episode or something, and then you've got your dinner done, or eat. But yeah, so just so people see, this is a standard classic size of salad that I would eat. I eat right now on average 2,400 to 2,700 calories a day, all at 10% total calories coming from fats, to keep my blood sugar levels stable, and keep myself full. Because actually, yesterday when they got here, I was kind of going through a couple of boxes, and I found my old journal of when I was trying to be raw, like way back in the day, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, there's like no food on here. I was eating maybe like 700 calories, not getting enough. So I would always fail, I would always fall off because I just wasn't eating enough food.
Yeah.
So it's super, super important if you guys do decide to try a raw vegan diet to eat enough. And that's why in the meal plan, I have it planned out specifically. Woo!
That was another really positive aspect. You got a little on there.
Yeah.
It was all planned out to where you had enough calories in the day as long as you followed along with what you're supposed to be eating. And yeah, it's another thing that's really cool is I get asked a lot too from my homies, like, hey Nate, like how do you know you're getting enough protein? And that's always the question. And it's really cool this day and age. We have these apps. So I have this app called Chronometer. And you type in a chronometer, and I'm like, I've got 127 grams of protein. So like literally, that's more than my body can process. Like that's too much protein, honestly. But we have this thing where, like, we feel like we need, a gram per pound of body weight, or a gram and a half per pound of body weight, or something. And man, that is just way too much protein. The kidneys can't even function, can't even process that. But yeah, you definitely get enough nutrition if you're eating enough.
Yeah,
now, if I only ate, say like if we broke this in half, and that was my dinner, sure, I'm gonna be hungry, 30 minutes, 40 minutes from there, possibly be like, I'm kind of hungry again. So, but if I ate the whole bowl, 30 or 40 minutes, I'm still eating. So, it does take time to adjust to any new lifestyle. And that's another thing too, is like, I wanted this to be a lifestyle for myself. I didn't want to have this thing where I was like, okay, cool, I'm doing 30 days. I actually had a couple of coworkers come along with me because I was like, this is really tricky, by yourself. And I was definitely shy. I didn't want people to know like what I'm doing. I'm like, this is so weird. Like, I'm a weirdo. But they came along with me, and as soon as that 30 days was done, they were over it. They were back to their, Weight Watchers. They're doing their counting, and they're microwaving cheese enchiladas. And I'm like, poor things. Like, you guys were doing so good. But it does take time. Not everybody came here to feel good and heal themselves and live as vibrant as they could. Some people just came here to party and really rip it up.
All right, guys, we're almost ready to try this out. All right, so we have ramen for everybody, so you can come up and grab a bowl and just enjoy.
All right, come on, guys.
Thank you. So, yep.
Another thing that's really cool about raw foods, and you don't use oil, is the cleanup is so fast.
One question for potassium and vitamin D. What do you guys choose? Do you take supplements for that, or you choose particular foods that have that added?
Well, vitamin D, we take a supplement, just because, unless I was living in like Costa Rica, where I could go out in the sun every day, I wouldn't bother with a supplement. But because we live here in Canada, and I probably haven't seen the sun on my arms in like 6 months, so I need to take a supplement for that, and I take a B12 as well. But for calcium, you're gonna find iron, calcium, and protein, the three things that people are like always worried about in leafy greens. Yeah, the vitamin D is actually added to the dairy because we are all so deficient, and people get like all up in arms with the vegan diet being deficient, but it's like, look at everybody else eating on the planet. Everybody else is deficient in something, right? So we really all, no matter what diet you're on. And it's interesting too with the dental problems. Like people are like, oh, raw vegans have problems with their teeth. And it's like, well, if you read the Canadian Association for Dental Health or whatever, their website, on their website, it says 100% of North Americans have dental issues. And I'm like, and you're worried about the 0.02% who are raw? Like, we've got a bigger problem at hand here instead of just picking on the raw. But I know it's like, it's mindset, it's belief systems, and they're so indoctrinated by the dairy industry to think that you need dairy for D and calcium and stuff and protein. But yeah, greens. So I hope everybody enjoyed their ramen and enjoyed our class. We will be here. I'll be selling my books if anyone's interested. I don't have any change, but I think you can get change from the tills. I'm not sure. But I will have those, and I will
I don't have
use
I have American.
American money.
I'll tell you what, I always change for my Canadian.
Your guys' money looks so cool.
Well, thank you guys for coming, and like I
thanks,
said, we'll
guys.
still be here to chat and whatever, but thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.